Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Safety and Technology Committee meeting for January 11th, 2022. It's 6:02 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. First item on our agenda, let me actually share my agenda, is review of the previous committee meeting minutes. So let me share that out. Oh, I can't share. All right, I'll read through them. So the Safety and Technology Committee met on December 14th. In attendance were Carlos Ramirez, Laser Alert, Ashley Pineda, Chris Fallon, David Warner, Lisa Raymond. The meeting was called to order at 6:07 p.m. We had a status of technology at GCSD report. The first bullet item that was touched on was the survey results. We had an update that 522 responses were processed at that time, and we would hopefully get a review of the actual results during the next committee meeting, which would be this one. We also touched on status of Chromebook replacement devices. We wanted to know what was going on in terms of, are there sufficient devices in the environment for the children and you know, the breakage and all that kind of stuff. And essentially, we at the time had enough stock that we were able to hand out a device for each student, but we had depleted our basically devices on the shelf. We had a status update at that time on any outstanding orders. We had replaced an order for 150 devices all the way back last August, and it's still pending, at least as of the last meeting. We had inquired on a discussion we previously had about adding some language to the next revision of the parent agreement on whether insurance language could be added to help cover non-accidental damage, right? Intentional damage. And we had also talked on potentially the idea that we tossed around of a communication being sent out to the community, just reminding folks of, you know, the replacement cost of a device and consequences and et cetera, and how we could follow the student code, you know, for age appropriate response if there was a continuous issue. We also talked about the student GCSD email accounts not having access to incoming communications from the College Board. At the time, there was a meeting being scheduled for later on that week, and we would have an update during this meeting, presumably. And then we also established the fact that we had previously talked about a beginning of year parent packet. That feedback was provided to the CEC, so that's in their hands now. We had also talked about communication for changes to school hours or foul weather events, but specifically focused on bus routes, right? And this was referencing the issue we had, I think it was 2 Novembers ago at this point, where there was like a snow squall or something and everybody was caught, you know, in traffic basically. And there was some communications issues, right? So the request was, can we do a limited test run or a test run of those alerts that associate the students with the buses, just to make sure that was all working. We talked about Infinite Campus, and if there was an option to go that route, we got an update that there was a significant cost difference to go with the Infinite Campus solution, and that we thought that the administration believed that they could get very similar results using eSchool Plus, what we already have, and they were going to need some time to look into that. We also talked about the LTE insufficient communication letter to the PSC, the Public Service Commission. And at that time, the update was that a draft of the letter was shared with our superintendent. She was looking at potentially sending that out. And we had asked for if that did go out, if we can send that letter to the CEC committee so that they could reach out to other community-based organizations and see if anyone else had similar interest in pushing the Public Service Commission to try to get something moving for better LTE coverage in our community as a whole. We then talked about parent-teacher conference meetings and just elaborated a little bit on whether Zoom would be a good option using breakout rooms and if we wanted to standardize on a platform. Then we talked about student pedestrian safety when walking home from the high school, you know, during the early mornings and late at night with lighting. And then we went into closed session to talk about safety and security issues. We then went ahead and adjourned the meeting at 7:08 p.m. Those are the minutes of the December 14th meeting. Do I hear a motion to adopt those meeting minutes?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll go ahead and formally adopt those meeting minutes. And moving right along to our agenda for today, let me see if I can try to share this now. I can't share it. Mr. Ramirez, do you mind sharing it on your screen since you probably do have sharing permissions?
For the, yeah, I'm gonna, you have the access.
Okay, try again. Thank you.
Sorry for that.
No worries at all. Okay, January 11th, share. There we go. Okay, and hopefully you see my screen. Okay, awesome. All right, so the first thing up for this evening is another status of technology GCSD report. So as we just covered, right, during our last meeting, we talked about the survey, and we were hopeful that during this meeting, the actual results of the survey would be available. Mr. Ramirez, are those available or do you need additional time?
Actually, the results are not available until May, because that's the due date that the state is asking for these surveys to be finalized with the department that is processing all of those. I can tell you how many were processed by the district. The number now is all the way to 657 surveys that were completed and submitted. So we are still looking at a number of students that need to complete the survey at home. Is about, I would say, 900 students that need to complete the survey. So we still need to do more work to complete this by May. I can give you probably some advanced report on the status of this by the end of February, I will say, when we get more in the process through the lyric and updated information that can be released. So this time we're still processing what we're receiving.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Valen?
Is it too late to turn in those surveys then?
No. We have until May. So what we're doing is basically we did a first instance of reaching out to the parents in December. The surveys were in paper form in the backpacks of the students. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a second instance of that. The advantage is all of this is processed electronically, so there is no chance to have a duplicate.
Okay, I was going to ask, is there barcoded or something? Aren't
Yes, there is a barcode in there. So
So-
once we, yes, okay.
So as a parent, because we discussed this in this committee, I thought I turned it in. I will freely admit to the world that I forgot. I did not turn mine in because I thought I did, because we've discussed this and I've looked at the forms multiple times. So I have those forms still, but if a parent still has those forms and they turn it in and then they get a new form, will there be instructions that they should not submit the duplicate, or is the barcode the same on the forms to each student? I don't imagine it would be.
Yeah, I can actually send a note with the forms the second time that we will send it before we send them with a note saying, this is a second intent, attention to this form. Be sure that if you submit it, please don't submit a duplicate. But we still, when we process in the scanner, it will recognize if it was submitted before. So
Okay.
there is no chance that we will do a duplicate, but the
Is it
state
like
requires that we complete these surveys, that we show that we made the best effort to collect it from all the all the students, all the families in the district.
Mhm.
That's the main goal. So they didn't say you had to meet the 1610 number of the students that you have in the district enrolled right now. They said show that you try.
Good faith.
Because, there are many instances where it could be language barrier, it could be not understanding some of the questions, they just forgot. But we're going to make at least 3 attempts. That's our goal. We're going to try now at the end of this month, and we're going to try again one more time in March through April. So within we close.
So just 2 other questions, I for detail. So when you do the second intent, are you blanketing all the student body, or you're just now it's individually to the people who've not yet returned?
We since we send this anonymous,
Okay.
I cannot really identify who did, who didn't. What I can identify is if the form that was submitted before had the code. So we're going to work on that with the principals and try to see if we can remind the families that already received this.
So if the form for child Valen does not necessarily have barcode X, how will, I don't understand, if it's anonymous, how do you know that child Valen is getting the same barcode?
They have a barcode in the top. Did you see the ones that you receive at home?
Yes, I don't have it right here.
Yeah,
It's in-
they have a barcode on the tab. So it's a unique identifier. No worries.
okay, so it's a unique identifier, but it's anonymous.
Not the name. Is a unique identifier that was already used.
So how do you know that Child Valen is getting that?
Because I'm not repeating
Barcode,
I'm not
sorry.
repeating the phone. The
Okay.
sequence is provided by BOSIS. It's a new number every time. So if for any reason I get 0122 against submitted to us to be resubmitted, it will tell me this was already used. The code was already used. It won't accept it.
And 0122 identifies Child Valen, or it's just
Right.
a duplicate code used in the district?
No, it identified the responses that we received from whoever was the child that received that form.
Okay,
We don't record the name of the student.
gotcha.
The survey has to remain.
I'm just
anonymous.
trying to connect the dots from the anonymous form to getting it to the right household. That's
Right.
the link I'm confused.
So basically, let me
Spray and pray.
clarify. David, go ahead, David.
He has to spray and pray. He has to broadcast and hope he gets responses. My question is there anything on that survey such that your situation could change over the course of the school year?
Yes. For example, the access to the internet, the
Mhm.
broadband that you have contracted with the provider. Let's say that you have right now 200 megabytes per second, and then you upgrade to 1 gigabyte per second. Things like that can change. But the state is asking us to make the effort to collect this data. They are not making that as a mandatory. You need to have the best updated data as of this day. They gave us the entire school year basically to collect it and get it submitted through the state data reporting. So they have an idea of what is happening in terms of the families accessing the internet at home, devices at home. There are like 3 or 4 questions that are kind of, they basically reside on the end of the family. And they were very specific about not collecting, identifying information other than identifying the responses. So if a form was used, it cannot be reused. That's basically what happened.
Right. So other than cautioning people not to resubmit, even if circumstances have changed,
Mhm.
it's as good a snapshot as you're going to get. Okay.
So that's the intent of this survey is to gather a first level data so the state can make some decisions in terms of the infrastructure for the future. And that involves even, working with the Public Service Commission, probably from the state level, and ensure that, access to internet via LTE is enabling areas that are now blind spots. So I just shared with Mr. Pineda via the Google, the draft of the letter that was shared with Dr. Iverson and was sent to the Public Service Commission, so he can share with the Communications Committee. As you can see, we need to alert our political representatives in the district, in the Senate, and get their involvement. I want to thank Lisa Raymond. She actually prioritized on our order because we want to be sure that we have enough devices for new students. As I mentioned in the previous meeting, we have an increase on enrollment. And something that is very positive for the district because it shows that the families trust the programs that we offer for the children, that is meaningful for their education. And we want to continue serving the children the best way possible. So that's the way that we are planning on that.
So, Mr. Ramirez, just to clarify, those 50 additional, those will come at a later time, right?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. At least another couple of weeks.
Okay, perfect. And then the first question you answered already, which was there are no students in need of a device.
As of now, we cover everyone. But we're still working on keeping up with that because there is always a new student. There's always somebody that have a device that is malfunctioning or needs a repair. So we try to attend to those on a daily basis.
Trustee Valen?
So just in case anyone sees this and is watching and disputes the fact that they have a device, they could email team@greenbergcsd.org. Is that correct, Mr. Ramirez?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next agenda item was during our last meeting, we talked about the copay amount being added for the next revision of the parent agreement. Conversations were happening with administration and Dr. Macaluso to figure out what made sense. Just curious, was anything further accomplished there, or is that still a work in progress?
Due to the internal meetings that we had in the last couple of weeks due to the COVID cases and all that, we are scheduled to have that meeting with Dr. Macaluso by the end of this week. So I have no updates yet, but I have already the quote for the insurance to cover for accidental damage or non-accidental damage. So we have to have the conversation. Probably Ms. Raymond will be part of that because we need to ensure that if it's done, it needs to be done in a way that is in alignment with the policies and procedures that our board already established. And that's the contract that we have right now. So the parents will have to probably secure that kind of coverage, pay that copay whenever that happens, if there is no accidental damage, if it's an intentional damage on a device. But with that, we cover everything else that we didn't cover before. And we kind of, see that this spiral situation with the damage of the devices slow down. And I mentioned that in the previous meeting. So I want to continue working on that part of the education of the parents and partnering with them, because we want to be sure that they understand also that these devices are district owned, it's taxpayer money, and we have the same responsibility as is our own, and we need to monitor and supervise our children to ensure that they are using it appropriately. And the purpose is instruction. That's the main purpose of these devices.
Thank you. Trustee Valen?
So I just want to pin down like our next step. I understand you need to have a meeting, but is our goal to have this agreement amended by the spring so that incoming students in the fall would be signing this new document? I see yes. And are we considering it? And then I know we want to send a reminder to everyone. We would just kind of copy paste that new language to the reminder to the existing agreement holders. This is what you agreed to, and to highlight the fact that we didn't specify a possible dollar amount, but if that's how the language changes, is that our goal to have this done by the spring? Just email all that out.
So it's a two-step
target date for the reminders to the existing contract holders, I guess. Is the second question.
So the current contracts will be amended, and we will probably submit something to the board so the board approves that, and we are going to have to involve our legal counsel to confirm that the language that we're introducing is accordingly to the rules and procedures that we have. Yep. But the only addition that we are looking into this contract is to provide for that portion of non-accidental damage. What happens when a device has been damaged or destroyed on purpose? Then the insurance will come in, recover that device, and the copay will be responsibility of the parent. That piece is what we need clarification and final decision by central administration. So I'm very clear about what really needs to happen. It's just we didn't have the
no, I understand. I'm just trying to actually, because there are so many balls that we're juggling in the air right now, I'm saying if this is something we're really looking to enact for the fall,
yes,
maybe there's some time we can buy in, but I'd still like to nail down a date if that's okay with the committee. If we say that, if you can nail down the language by April, that gets to the lawyers and the board is reviewing it by May, so that by June things are being printed and ready for the fall. I just like to kind of tighten up if that's okay. Maybe this isn't necessary, but I also want to buy some time because I know right now things are insane.
Trustee Valen, that's where I left it on the agenda. And the way I think we should proceed, since to your point, there's so many things going on right now. Mm-hmm. I think we should just keep it on the agenda and just get status updates. And I'm sure that administration is aware of the issue. They'll fit it in as they can see fit. If we start getting into, a few months from now, we haven't made progress, then let's throw a date on it. But hopefully it won't go that long.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. The next bullet point was the interim communication that we were going to send potentially to remind the parents and caretakers of the cost of replacement of devices and all that. Mr. Mears, I presume that'll be covered in your meeting with Dr. Macaluso and you guys.
Yes, it is part of the previous item, the bullet point. So what I will say is I like the idea, and I want to thank Trustee Valen to have a timeline, because then we are setting ourselves for expectation on completion of this. So I would say that by the end of March, we should have a draft of that new contract with the updates and submit it to our legal counsel if it's needed. and ensure that they actually return it to us within the 30 days. So then it can get into the conversation and recommendation to the board, because this committee can make that recommendation and see it, to be approved. And then we can actually release it to everybody. And it becomes an addendum, like a rider on a contract. So whatever contracts we have in place will automatically have this rider added to that. So we don't need to reissue or find a new signature or something like that. I think that is a procedure that can be implemented.
So looking at the calendar, our next committee meeting is on February 8th.
Mhm.
After that, we are on, let's see here.
I have March 30th.
At the date, yeah, let me get there. Yep, March 30th. So Mr. Ramirez, you're saying that you think by the March 30th meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you again, because I like working on timelines, and that helps a lot.
We're saying that's the day we'll have it ready for the board?
That we will have ready for this committee, so we can actually
The
then
recommendation.
do a final recommendation.
Thank you. All right, moving along, the student GCSD email account. So during the last meeting, we have talked on that, and there was a December 17th lyric meeting being scheduled to figure out, what are next steps and different options. And there was also going to be a internal conversation at the high school level with Dr. Macaluso as well to figure out, what was the right strategies. Is there an update on that?
That is pending.
Okay.
Unless there was any other conversation, but not that I'm aware of that actually happened yet.
Okay, so we will check in on that on our next meeting. Okay. The next piece was the ongoing conversation with the test run of the bus emergency situation alerts.
Yep. And I can let you know that prior to Laser leaving, he was working with Frank Gunn to get School Messenger up. Not that it wasn't up and running, it is up and running, but they were trying to get the routes accurate so that the test run could be put out. Then Laser resigned and Mr. Ramirez assumed the School Messenger
Responsibility.
that's it. And after Laser resigned, 2 other people in his department resigned, and he's been running ragged. I have been in communication with Frank. He said that things are much better with School Messenger. Has an alert gone out as a test run? I don't think so. I don't think it's gone out yet. But as you know, we've had a couple of closings or 2-hour delays, and I haven't gotten any reports from Frank that things have gone awry. So I think we're on the right track.
Okay, just to clarify there, thank you, Ms. Raymond. The School Messenger, which my understanding is where the alerts come out of, I guess the only clarifying point we wanted for the test was, to your point, the bus route information inputting into School Messenger, because we know School Messenger works solid. And yes, to your point,
Right.
we've had a few recent uses of the system. And
Exactly. And I do know that Frank and Laser, and after Laser left, I know that Mr. Ramirez is working with Frank to make sure that the runs are in there. That was one of Frank's major concerns, that the runs weren't I don't mean the run. Well, you know what I mean about the runs, the school bus runs, school bus number 1. Here's the number of kids that are on it. Let's get the message out to those parents.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten any, and Dr. Iverson hasn't said anything to me. Mr. Ramirez hasn't said anything to me, and Frank hasn't called me with any concerns that a parent has called and said, I never got the notification. So I think we're on the right track. Are we 100%? I'm not positive. Maybe Mr. Ramirez can answer that, but I think things are much better than what they were.
Thank you.
So I can provide an update, but I will wait for Trustee Valen to ask the question. She has a question right there.
Oh, no, I appreciate all the work. Again, back to juggling balls in the air and all the work that's already been done. I do want to point out that even though we've had closures and other things that have tested the school messenger system, the key with the routes is really early dismissals when kids might be going home and parents may or may not.
So let me refer to that.
So that's, I just wanted to point out, we still need to kind of move forward on this.
Yeah, it is complete, and it is complete as of this weekend. It wasn't before, it was this weekend that we worked with Frank and we did a sandbags, that's the term, sandbags test. What we did is we test the information that was coming from Transfinder, which is the updated bus route enrollment, let's call it like that, and it was going into school messenger. So right now, what he did is he confirmed that for the in-district students, he got everything already finalized with laser, but he was missing the out-of-district student routes. I made that happen with him. We work on that together, and now it's complete. And he can confirm with Ms. Raymond whenever Ms. Raymond reaches to Frank. The purpose of that was to synchronize automatically with our student information system and Transfinder, because we get enrollments every day and it comes into your school plus, and then that information goes into Transfinder for the routing of the buses that Frank controls and manages every day. Students change routes because they move within the district, they change their bus stop and all of that. So he's updated with that every single day. We wanted to be sure that that information was correct in a school messenger. But at the same time, we wanted to be sure that any enrollment change, like somebody exiting the district, was reflected so he could catch it in time and say, oh, I don't need to plan for 35 kids or 20 students on this bus because I now have 24. One student already exited. So that is now happening automatically. In addition to that, one of the principals brought to our attention that they had rosters, classroom lists for the students in elementary level, especially, and they weren't synchronizing because those were uploaded manually at the time that Laser did it in August. He just put a extract, and whatever was at that time in school plus as an enrollment was also in a school messenger. So we've been working with BOCES and school messenger to synchronize that data. I'm happy to report that all our elementary schools right now are updated and they have rosters with the teacher's name and their current enrollment, and it will be modified as is modified in school plus every day. It will reflect in a school messenger. I'm still working on the departmentalized classes for specials, English, social studies, math, in secondary education in the high school, because there's a large number of sections, and we want to see if we can identify a period that will be the homeroom for them. In the past, we identified at the third period in the day as the time that they will have like a general attendance. But I had to get the confirmation from Dr. Macaluso and the principal of the high school, but it's part of our plan. But we're getting slowly and surely updating this system so it reflects automatically and synchronizes every day at midnight, so the information is ready for next day if there is a need to do an early dismissal, a closing, or a late start. So that was our priority, and I'm happy to report we've been working on it.
Thank you for that update. That's very helpful. That sounds like we're making great progress. So thank you for that.
Sure.
All right. So that item, the next item was, we had just mentioned it during our recap of the previous meeting, the Infinite Campus Research, and we had some more information on how much it would cost for subscription to that. Obviously, it's more money. And there was the theory was we can get similar results, modifying eSchool Plus, and we were going to try to aim to do that this year.
And I'm happy to report this is the best example, what we're doing with the school messenger. So the systems can talk to each other. It's just a matter of getting all the support and the expertise from BOCES support and school messenger support. And we're getting all the players in the project, and it's working. So my goal is not only to save taxpayer money, but also to expedite all of these other features that we will get in a more costly package with what we have right now. I gotta commend the work of our data manager, Christina Prisco. She couldn't join us today, but I'm trying to see if I can get in the next agenda space so she can just provide with a report on the status of the data and the status of these systems and how we are basically synchronizing every system based on the information of our student information system, eSchool Plus, because that's the big project. We want to be sure that the main repository communicates with these other systems and is a synchronized, automated process. So that is the goal.
Perfect. Thank you for that update. All right, the next agenda item, I can update this already. So Mr. Ramirez shared the letter with me momentarily, right?
Yes.
I will get that to the CEC. Yes, Trustee Valen.
Sorry. I know in the past, I don't disagree with the need to do this. But I know in the past, I think, Mr. Ramirez, you brought this up at our first meeting this year, parents have expressed concerns about the placement of the Wi-Fi. Am I talking about the right thing? About the Wi-Fi on the campus. So as we send this letter, I guess if this moves forward, we'll have opportunities to discuss the placement of where this would go.
So it's a
On
twofold.
our campus, if there might even be, there's been discussions of compensation if a tower was placed on our campus. I figured all this will come if it moves forward. We'll have these discussions, correct? Okay, I just needed a little background. Thank you.
So just to reinvigorate the concept, this is a twofold effort. We have the district connectivity that is in our premises and our school grounds. We already secured that. We have the best connectivity possible. We have the most broadband possible. We are running at 750 megabytes per second, close to 1 gig. And we only use about 385 to 500 in the top peaks days and times in the day. So we are covered. And my goal is that by June, I want to go to 1 gig because I want to be sure that I have ample bandwidth for any in-person instruction in our school facilities. The key or the issue with the safety and security was for the part of the parents not being able to connect via phone with their children or things like that, because the LTE connectivity that is provided by outside operators like AT&T, Verizon, and all that is not present in most of our school grounds. Why? Because we're in the middle of the woods and there are no towers. Now, obviously, with the survey, and this is how it ties, with the survey and the efforts that the state is doing, they see that is happening in many areas in the state of New York. Mm-hmm. So we want to be also in that list when we send this letter and we send other communications to say, hey, Greenberg also needs help on that. And we need towers. We need towers in Greenberg because it's the only way that we will have LTE connectivity available for phones. That's basically what we're doing. We're making our effort. We're reaching out to stakeholders and representatives so they can help us on this goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Trustee Valen, to your question, I do believe that should it get further and we actually do get their attention, there will need to be a conversation as to placement and all that, right? Because they may determine, you know what, we don't need to add anything to the Woodlands campus. Maybe they could put something right outside our campus, and maybe that's more optimal for their signals. Or they may come back and say, we really do need something in Woodlands, and they'll need permission from the school district.
35-year lease.
Yeah. So there will have to be conversations on that. But let's cross our fingers that it even gets that far at this point.
No, we need to move forward, but there needs to be a conversation when it gets there. Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Just as an FYI, and I just want to remind you, and we stated this in the previous meetings, before COVID-19 hit us, there were conversations with some of these operators, specifically Verizon. And I was in that conversation with Mr. Falcon. When they were looking, they were just surveying our area and trying to see if they could put towers. Then that ended. With COVID-19, everything got suspended. There was no more conversations and all of that. So we actually called the number of the engineers that visit us, and they are not available anymore. But we continue on this effort on behalf of our school community. That's basically what we're going to do.
Makes sense. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next agenda item topic. Okay, so we had just reviewed this also. This was the parent-teacher conference meetings, and we had talked about there's this new feature in Zoom called Zoom Breakout Rooms. And the idea was, hey, is there a way to take advantage of that feature and essentially set up one big meeting link, one Zoom meeting link, I guess, per grade, or however that would be orchestrated by the buildings and with IT assistants showing them how to use it. And then parents could basically pop in and out of the breakout rooms for each teacher. And then it's more streamlined from a parent perspective, right? I know Laser was going to do some work with that. Obviously, he's not with us. Did that go anywhere, or did that kind of fall?
So we researched on that, and we found out that Google also added that same feature to Google Meets, which is something that the teachers are very familiar with. And that's what they've been using before without the ability to do breakout rooms. So right now, what we're doing is, well, we probably need to engage on some review, refresher training, see if we can get some additional training opportunities for them and do a test. Maybe at the next parent conference, we try in one of the schools and we test it. And if it works in the same capabilities that Zoom has, remember, Zoom is more commercial. It's a solution for corporate world, it's global compared to something dedicated to education like Google Meets. So we need to test it. We need to be sure that it works. I think that it will be well received by the teachers because it's something they are familiar with. And in our district, we had the practice that we've been using Zoom meetings only for meetings for the adults, for the board of education, for the central administration, with parents and community. We have been using consistently in instruction only Google Meets. So I want to see how that works, and we'll report back to this committee. And if the decision is to keep it in Google Meets, we will do that. Otherwise, we can explore the options in Zoom, which are available already. As you see on this meeting, you go to the button that says more, you have the breakout rooms right there. But like I said, this is a solution that is being used consistently for adults and for meetings with the community, the board, and central administration. We haven't used Zoom really in the classroom for obvious reasons. The integration with Google Classroom and Google Meets is easier because it's part of the same interface.
Sure. So just to clarify, the request is for parent-teacher conference meetings. It's not for children. And just a reminder, the reason we were harping on Zoom was only because the ubiquity of Zoom at this point. Everybody, I mean, my grandparents know how to use Zoom, believe it or not. And it's a lot easier. I will give Zoom credit on their UI. They were first on making it really easy. And I can tell you, I know a lot of people that have been in meetings on the bus or on a train, and even with really low bandwidth, it's not perfect, but it works. So that's why we keep going back to Zoom, just for the parent-teacher conferences. Totally understand on the students, there's privacy stuff as well, but that's why we keep thinking about Zoom for the parent-teacher conferences. If we could potentially run that test using Zoom, maybe you could get some feedback from that as well. Trustee Vallon?
Along the same lines, when we have our conferences on Google Meets, if we're not on our child's login, we cannot get in, even if I have my own Gmail account. That's the issue. Zoom, you can log in while you're driving, and I don't have to have my child's login. So if you want to continue exploring the Google Meets, it needs to allow outside entities to enter into those Google Meets. Now, I know a test was supposedly done before back to school night to allow parents into back to school night Google Meets. Wasn't successful, probably because everyone who was testing it within the school was on a school login. Even though they tried to use their personal, I know it might switch when you're in the building to the district one. So yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what Ashley's saying. For parents right now, Zoom is working. I think my personal parent-teacher conferences in the fall at the high school, middle school worked really well. They provided the links. I mean, we didn't use breakout rooms, but they basically provided a form. You just copy paste your schedule in, and you click, have chat, exit, click, chat, exit, and it was fine. But all I'm saying, if you're going to explore Google Meets, it has to allow outside people to get in.
So if I may, I got it. I see the value of introducing the use of Zoom for parent conference, because it's basically the adults that will be interacting, the teachers and the parents. Let me do a test run, Let me do a test run and report back to this committee. I'm gonna talk to some of the principals. I think that it probably would be easier to maybe talk to Mr. Smith because he has the larger component, the larger building. It may be a small building like Leah Jackson or Highview. I get back to you. I wanna see how that works because it's just enabling accounts for the teachers. I'm just thinking actually how it can be done. So I'll get back to you. I want to work on that.
The high school used Zoom in the fall. I don't know what the elementary schools used. Ashley, you could speak to that. But if you want a guinea pig to set up if you want to try the Google one and you want to set up a fake conference and send to my personal email address, I'll be your one-person test subject.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
I work on that. Thank you, Trustee Valley.
Yeah, I'm also always available too.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. David, you're available too?
Yes,
We use your personal email. So, yep.
not a problem.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much for the volunteering.
Okay, awesome. All right, the next agenda item is embedding keyboard instruction. Mr. Ramirez, I'll let you cover this. I know, do you want me to open up that link, that attachment?
Yes, please. Yes.
So you can go ahead and start talking about it while I get that queued up.
So in general, and we had this conversation in our committee before, I think that it was actually right before the COVID-19 crisis, that there were all these standards that the state education department put out for keyboard instruction in different grade levels. So we started working on looking for a solution and we implemented learning.com. Learning.com includes a technology curriculum it's called Easy Tech K-12 and includes keyboarding. It's embedded in instruction. We haven't used it because we had then the COVID-19 crisis. We went to remote learning. We started using Google Classroom and it kind of like, it didn't help us in our planning for this implementation. I'm happy to report that I met with Dr. Macaluso and we are having a meeting scheduled for this Friday. So we are going to start working on looking for a lot of time during the schedule so the teachers can actually share these activities, which will develop the typing skills for the students. Obviously, we need to follow the standards from the state, and the standards from the state start really at grade 3. Not before. Before, it's only awareness of the keyboard, awareness of where the keys are, but we have from kindergarten and up, full-size keyboards in the Chromebooks. So I want to put all the resources available. I want to talk to the teachers and discuss with the educators what is the best way that we can attain this goal of providing with keyboarding skills instruction for our children. The word that I hear all the time from the state is you got to embed that instruction. You cannot make it a separate subject. You got to embed it. Yes, but we had to embed it at the same time that we follow some of those standards. I remember the conversation with Trustee Valen before. Remember the old keyboarding class where you learn the home row keys and all of that. That is important for our children. I got to tell you, they are experts using the 2 fingers because they use the controllers for the gaming. But when it comes to using a full-size keyboard, they need to see the keys. While we, older people, we just type because we had exposure to that kind of skill. So I'm going to work with Dr. Macaluso and probably every school. We're going to meet with the principals and some of the lead, the PLC leaders or the teachers to get some feedback. What is the best way that we can approach this initiative? But the resource is available. The contract is already signed. The resource is ready. And I was talking with both Southwest BOCES to see what professional development they could provide to our teachers remotely, even virtual, so they can actually start using this resource. Right now, we have it available in ClassLink. So when the students log in, they see that logo, but they had to get instruction on how to use it. So our effort is right now to try to get into that planning.
Okay, thank you. And here's up on the screen, share the link you sent.
Yes.
This is some examples of how it works.
And the application actually tests the speed and the accuracy when they start doing the exercises with the typing, which actually resembles social studies, history, ELA type of assignments. So the goal is that they also develop some spelling and grammar check abilities, some speed and some accuracy when they actually typing. So, it's a lot of practice. With keyboarding, you remember how it was instruction when we had those old classes of keyboarding. It was mostly remembering where the keys were. And then you will just remember that as you type. So I think that combined with these other additional skills for spelling and grammar check and accuracy level, it will really round up the goal of providing with these skills development.
That's great news. Thank you for that update.
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions on that? Oh, okay. All right. So we'll stop sharing this. We'll go back to the agenda. And okay, the next agenda item was iReady instruction and middle of year assessment. Mr. Ramirez, do you want to provide an update on that? And do you want me to queue up that slide deck?
Yeah, we can just show in general the information that we are working. At the last board meeting, and I was charged by Dr. Macaluso to lead the effort with our resident expert, Lori DeAndrea. She couldn't join us for this meeting, but this is the work that is being in the making for the hype of these assessments on the middle of the year. What we want to be sure is that there is an opportunity for the educators to meet with the students and promote the value of these assessments from the perspective of formative assessments. The value that is informing how much of the knowledge transfer, how much of the skill acquisition is happening through the instruction that then you actually confirm by assessing the level of expertise, the level of the skill set. So a lot of these slides are teacher language, and this has been shared, I believe, with all the principals and the educators. But that is basically, in summary, what we are working on. I'm going to ask the committee if we can invite Ms. DeAndrea for the next one, so she can actually give us a report when we finish all the mid of the year assessments and how well this was, received by our school stakeholders, the students, the educators, and the administrators. Because the purpose of this is just kind of like promote the use of these assessments to confirm the knowledge acquisition. We want to be sure that happens, and we want to be sure that they receive this. And it's not like a routine situation, but it's something that will actually provide with information for the teachers so they can do their instructional planning. That is the value of that data. That is the value of the data that we gather after an assessment.
Yeah, this is great. And I like the way it's written and tailored to the audience, right? You can tell that this was designed for children to read, and it's pretty straightforward. It's very detailed and clear. So thank you for that.
We want to be sure the instructions were provided in simple language that they can understand, because we do this from K through 8. Mm-hmm. Grades kindergarten to 8th grade. Yes. Mr. Warren.
So depending upon the grade level of the students, we want them to be self-aware learners. So do the students end up understanding what skills they are doing well and what skills they need to work on based upon the outcome of these tests? Or is it just going to the teachers? You're muted.
It's twofold. We have the reports that the teachers gather from the data, from the assessment data, where they can actually identify how much progress is done for the student. And there is the parent reports. We also send reports to home. So the parents also share that information, and they can also help us partnering with the teachers on improving the skills of those students. Remember, at one point during COVID-19, we had to do remote assessments in iReady. And it was a challenge because we never did it before, but it was successful. So we're learning on what good practices we had before and trying to apply that previous knowledge into this new planning. I gotta tell you, I don't have all the answers about this. That's what I would like to invite Lori DeAndrea, but this work is teamwork. This involves the PLC leaders, this involves the schools, the principals, our assistant superintendent for instruction, leadership, and our superintendent, Dr. Iverson. They all involved on this, and they want this to be actually the vehicle to capture the data so we can do informed decisions for instruction. And at the same time, partner with the parents. so they can actually help us in that effort at home.
Thank you. Trustee Valen?
And my apologies if I just need to understand. So this is iReady, which we've used for some years, but the different part of it is it's the instructions and all that are geared towards the students in case they need to do remote assessments. Or are we now actively planning for those assessments to be done remotely as opposed to in the bill? I'm confused as to what the difference is between what you've just shown us and what's been in use for at least 4 or 5 years.
So when the assessments are done in person, they
Mhm.
are done in a controlled environment in the school.
Mhm.
They are in a room, they are in a classroom, they do it in their devices, and the teacher is right in front of them. When they are remote, it's done at home. There could be distractions, there could be other elements that can probably, invalidate the actual assessment.
So is this a
That's why
plan B for this year, or is plan A to still do the middle of the year assessments?
we are doing everything in
Plan
person.
B? Okay,
Our plan is in-person instruction, but we need to be ready if that happens and we go remote, especially with the uncertainty of the numbers and the statistics that we're managing right now. So we did some of that during the pandemic and we saw the results. And I gotta say, the results were to fidelity. To some extent, there was always a percentage of, of issues with information that we could see that somebody just scrolled through the questions or things like that, because there is no control environment. But we work on this with the parents, we work with the schools, and our goal is now that to have a plan B. So we do in person, but what happens if we have to go remote?
no, I just want to understand that this is plan B if we
This-
happen to be remote.
If we have to go
Middle of
remote.
the year instruction time, which is like February-ish, right? When we do the MOIs?
The MOI is during the month of January at the end.
Oh, January, okay,
And
January.
beginning of February. So it involves 2 weeks.
Okay, sorry, I just had to clear that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think also it's, in general, I think information like that's helpful either way, right? Because I know the first time the children run through that process, it's still a little foreign to them, right? So the more information we give them, the better, in my opinion. Even if we end up, continuing with our path of plan A and everything in person, I think it doesn't hurt. So thank you for putting that together. The next item, okay, so we have a few safety items to discuss, but they're really more open session at this point. So we're going to cover those. And then once we're done with that, we'll go into new business. And then after new business, we will go into closed session for some more sensitive security items and safety items to discuss. So the first open session safety item is an update on the student pedestrian safety when walking home from the high school. Trustee Valen, I know you had mentioned that you were going to take a look at some of those light poles that you had been running into that were not powered. I don't know if you want to let Ms. Raymond cover it first and then you can provide feedback.
Ms. Raymond and I, yes, if she could just update us on what we saw in December.
So, yep, Trustee Valen and I have been in conversation, and I've been in conversation with Mr. Falcone. At that time, there were 4 lights that were out. It went down to 2. And he assured me that our electrical contractor was going to be fixing them. I haven't heard that there are any issues. If there are, I would appreciate knowing that so that I can address it with Mike. I'm positive he would have told me if there wasn't, but unfortunately, he's had a death in his family recently, and I haven't been able to see him in the last last week and a half.
He was at the funeral, so he's at least functional.
Yes.
But he's busy.
He's busy. He's dealing with some legal matters for the next, he'll be back to work on Friday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the update on that one. The next 2 were added. The first one is about the assigned seating on the bus.
Yes, that will begin tomorrow. I spoke with Frank today. He has assigned seats for all elementary students, pre-K through 6. He was working on the high school. He said that was a little more complicated than the elementary school. Everything for pre-K to 6 will be in line for tomorrow. He was hoping that he could have 7 through 12, but he wasn't positive about that. He was consulting with his drivers to help with assigning those. So I can guarantee you pre-K to 6 will be done tomorrow. 7 through 12 is a work in progress.
Thank you. Okay, any
And
questions on that?
No, I think it's great that the elementaries will be done. I think the high school is a tough nut to crack because the students are so intermingled in classes and extracurriculars anyway.
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And Trustee Pineda, as far as the test to stay planning is concerned, we have been meeting all of last week, all of so far this week. We have a couple more meetings this week. We have received our first allotment from Westchester County. It is at the district. It is secured. We have another allotment that is given to us by the county. Our courier tomorrow will pick them up from Southern Westchester BOCES. And Dr. Iverson has me pricing out additional tests that we would pay for to complete the project. It's not just that simple. Even though we have the tests, how are we going to administer it? What is New York State saying? What is Westchester County saying? And she's been holding meetings towards the end of last week and all of this week. And I know that I have some meetings coming up. I think maybe tomorrow and Thursday so that we can roll it out and get it started.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Trustee, I'm not sure who was first.
David,
Trustee Warner?
Okay, so do we know who will be administering the tests or who were?
Okay, so our goal was that we took our lead nurse, Shirley Yapchanik, and asked her to find a nurse for us through the agencies that we use. Well, obviously, because of the times, nurses are far and few between. So we just discussed today that we would possibly advertise for a nurse that would just be in charge of this process here. So that's still a work in progress because we're not sure what exactly it is we're going to be able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Okay, so that is up. Go ahead, Trustee Valen.
two things. We'll cross what you just said. I think if we can't find a nurse, I think there's different certifications that people could get.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that'll be like plan B, I guess, if we can't find.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're trying to figure out. How are we going to roll this out? We have the supplies for the most part. How are we going to roll it out and what is the staff that is going to be able to do it?
Yep. So two quick questions. And I understand everything's in flux. We're still working on it. It's not ready yet. I understand. Going back to the additional tests that we might pay for. Now that home tests, rapid tests will be covered by insurance, and I'm assuming the government, if I were to go buy a test because I've had exposure, I would be able to get that reimbursed. I don't know if the tests that we use in the school for this program are specific kind of tests, or if, like the parent said at the meeting the other night, he says, I'll provide the test. If I provide the test,
Right.
come to the school and do it, with the
Exactly. So the tests that we have been given from Westchester County, from New York State, I got to tell you, are the same tests that I bought for my family during the holidays. There are 2 tests in a box and they cost $19.99. So I had our purchasing clerk search everywhere. Could we piggyback off of somebody, et cetera, et cetera. We found that we could piggyback off of a bid from Massachusetts, which was our cheapest way to do it. It still would cost us a phenomenal amount of money. Now, could that be included under the CRISA or the ARP grant? Sure, it certainly could, but it's going to take away from something else. So what we're doing now is we haven't ordered anything. Dr. Iverson has said, hold off, let's see what the county and the state is saying. If again, Trustee Valen, we could get this and we could possibly put it through our Southern Westchester Health Plan, which would be perfect.
Right, that's okay. You're going where I was thinking.
Yep, that's what we're waiting for. We haven't ordered anything because I got to tell you, we would be about 5,000 tests short after all of this. That could cost us up to between $76,000 and $88,000.
Yeah.
So we've held off to see if we could, if we did it, could we put it under our health insurance?
Okay, great. Okay, so we're on the same wavelength. And
Yeah.
my last question is, and again, plan is in flux. I'm not going to take anything you say as the plan. When test to stay happens, I am assuming that kids won't be sent on buses to go to school and then test once they arrive there. I'm assuming that
No,
if my child
the
is
test will be,
I have to drive him there.
I'm not sure about that. I know that the test will be given to the child to bring home to do.
Oh,
It's not going to be done at school.
but you just said we have to hire a nurse to do the test.
Again, it's twofold.
Okay.
One document that we've received said, okay, we'll give the kids the test. They'll go home, they'll do it. Right now, when we do COVID testing, we can accept a rapid PCR, an antigen test, or a PCR test. If you test positive on a home test, you are considered infected.
Next level.
Okay. But the school can't accept it because, let me give you an example. Chris, let's just say you did the home test and I have to do one. You tested negative, but you gave me your home test. You can't prove that you did it. There's where the controversy comes in. So,
Right.
so I got to tell you, Dr. Iverson, we all did in administration. Carlos, I think you got it too. We got a 1223 memo for New York State Department of Health. We got a January 4th memo updating that. We got a December, January 4th, January 10th, and we just got another one today. So they keep amending what they're requiring from us, and we just don't know exactly what it is we have to do.
Yeah, the federal government isn't helping right now.
Okay, so are we still on 3 tests? So one box won't cover it, and so you're saying potentially if somebody has to verify administration, you're looking at 3 visits. Am I correct? Has that changed?
No, right now that's correct.
Okay, spaced apart by
Mhm.
a couple days, right?
Yep, that's why even though Greenberg has been given 2 allotments from the Department of Health for Westchester, Dr. Iverson wants to buy more so that it will extend for the period that we are required.
Okay. So going back to my if the tests do need to be done at the school, as the parent of a child who doesn't need to quarantine, ideally I don't have the possibly needing to quarantine people on the bus.
Right.
As the child, but you're going to have parents who might have difficulty getting to the school and waiting with their child while they're tested to stay. But
Right.
I guess the worst.
And right now, I got to tell you all that today we got another change that said, oh, even if you're not vaccinated and you are exposed, but you don't have symptoms for 5 days, come on, you can come to school. Things are changing so rapidly that from the federal government to New York State to what Westchester is adopting, it is so unstable right now that Dr. Iverson is kind of swimming.
Right. Okay.
All right, so thank you for all that work so far. Obviously, plans are in flux. I fully expect by the next time we have a meeting, something else will have changed at least once, if not 2 or 3 times.
Exactly.
We'll hear the update at that point in time. All right. Any new business for open session that the team wants to bring up? Go ahead, Trustee Valen.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I don't know how it happened, but thank you to whoever posted on Facebook. Let me see if I can find the date here. Sometime in early January, January 7th, the information about school messenger so that parents could sign up. That was timely. That was great. I'd love to see that somehow. I don't know if the board can e-blast that out or if that could go in one of the weekly, again, obviously, if people don't have the correct emails, it might not be in there. But for those that do get the emails, they could sign up for the text messages for these weather closures. So I think that was a great message to put on Facebook. And even if we had a pop-up screen on the website, just something for a couple of days as we keep entering bad weather time. So thank you for that. That's fantastic. And the other quick little thing I wanted to ask, or maybe this is probably something I'm going to ask for the next meeting, which is probably not appropriate, but for again, similar thing, subscribing to those e-blasts. I know that the board has a new web page where people can sign up to receive messages. I don't know if those are messages just from the board or from the school district. So I guess I want to explore that a little further at the next meeting, but that might be another way to get information out there. And if people want to sign up, go to the board page and sign up to receive our communications, please.
I believe, Trustee Valen, your board page, it would just be blasts from the board.
Okay. Thank you. That's all for me.
I also wanted to add that Mr. Pineda received detailed information on the way that those communications are handled now. I mean, we can discuss in the closed session, but the board page and the e-alerts is directly communication from the board to the community. It uses civic engagement. Did you remember that? And school messenger is used for official communications from the school district. Just to clarify.
Thank you. Thank you for the update, Mr. Ramirez. Thank you for confirming that. Okay. Any other new business items? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone's hands. Okay, so for our community at home, at this point, we're going to go ahead and once we vote on it, well, I guess, do we technically vote on it, right? No, we motion. Once we motion on going into closed session, we'll go into closed session and talk about some safety and more sensitive security items. But from this point forward, there's no more open session for this meeting. So right after we get out of closed session, we're gonna essentially adjourn the meeting. So if you stayed with us this long, thank you for your time. We appreciate you paying attention and helping us move everything forward. And Mr. Lewis, thank you for broadcasting this. We'll go ahead and close the meeting. Do I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss safety and security items?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Lewis, please go ahead and stop the broadcast and have a great night. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So we're in closed session now?
Almost. We'll wait till we see Mr. Lewis's